Akinfe. So, as you all know, Akin is a journalist, a historian, and an author. And I would say, Akin, welcome to the house this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we quickly dive into the conversation today, Akin. The conversation this afternoon is on the Nigerian structure. Going back to the Lancaster House Agreement. And before we kickstart, I think it would be fair to say, for the benefit of those who do not know what the content of the Lancaster House Agreement was, could you please say that Lancaster House Agreement before we dive into the meat of the matter today? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mazi. Once more, let me just make it clear again. My name is Akinfe. The Lancaster House Agreement was a document signed, a communique signed in 1958 by the leaders of all the component parts in Nigeria. It formed the basis of how Nigeria would be governed. So everybody met at Lancaster House in London. They put their name to a document which outlined how the country would be governed, the governing structure, the financial arrangement, the security arrangements. And it was accepted by everybody. Everybody signed it. Azikiwe, Awolowo, Akintola, Balewa, Amadu Bello, Joseph Taka, Harald Rapabirie, you name it, everybody signed it. And it formed the basis of how Nigeria was governed between 1960 and 1966, when we had the first military intervention.
Okay, so now, obviously, the 1966 coup, that's 8 years after that agreement was signed. Now, we had the 1966 coup, basically, that took away the agreement, or rather made away with the agreement, that the agreement became null and void, and the military eventually took over. And from there, it appeared Nigeria started going downhill. Now, in your view, what do you think when people make reference to 1963? Is there any difference between the Constitution of 1963 and the 1958 Lancaster Agreement?
One small difference is that in 1963, we became a republic. The Queen of England ceased to have any control, any authority over Nigeria whatsoever. I think that was the last fundamental change we had. So when people call for a return to 1963, I can understand what they're talking about. But for me, that was really cosmetic. I think the major issue was the governance structure, which was agreed between the parties in 1958. I don't think anybody's going to ever ask for the Queen to come back and become our head of state today.
So basically, in fairness, it might be better to stick with 1963 then, because obviously that's when we became a republic.
Well, we could argue that, but again, I'm not sure it makes much of a difference. But okay, 63, 58, then in 1963, we were still governed by the contents of the Lancaster House Agreement.
Okay, so the nitty-gritties of the 1958 Lancaster House Agreement. Now, what manner of structure did that provide for the entity called Nigeria as it were then?
Well, for me, the key point was that everything, or virtually everything, was left to the federating units. There was an exclusive list, and there were only 4 things on the exclusive list: defense, foreign affairs, railways, and ports. Those were the only 4 things governed by central government. Everything else was run by the states, be it education, be it healthcare, be it the economy, be it security, you name it. Everything was governed by the federating units, the 4 regions. Apart from that, before anything the way a revenue was distributed was that the states took charge of everything within their domains. They took 50% of the revenue, 20% went to the federation account, and 30% went into a central pot. Something kind of similar to the to the sovereign wealth fund, or excess crude account, where everybody had access to if they needed it for capital projects. But other than that, the states were, the federating units was self-run, and all this over-centralization, which we've got at the moment, just didn't come about. It just didn't come about. And that for me was the beauty of the 1958 arrangement.
Okay, and when we talk about the federating units by that we mean the regions at that time.
That's true. Yeah, in 1958 there were actually only 3 of them. Yeah, the 3 of them.
Okay, so now you wrote something that I curiously have found out that it has been rewritten, sort of. I don't know if you saw it.
I did.
It's been slightly rewritten, people saying that Nigerian government is flying a kite and that this is the way they want to restructure the system. Now, I would try to see if I can get the that article on the screen. Then that can now help us, you help us to review this. Now, here is the article that's in reference that you wrote. And it says that Nigeria will be made up of 42 states with 7 per each of our constituent geographical, geopolitical zone. And these shall be, again, I no longer remember because this shall be, it now sounds like the government invasion, or the version that the government, or rather people have written in form of the government. But the key point is, if I go to the outline you've given, and I want to start, before I go into it, I want to start by saying, are you proposing, in place of the 1958 Lancaster Agreement, that the current 6 geopolitical regions should now replace and become a means of governance?
No, I'm not. I still believe the states should be the federating units, because for all our current problems, the states have actually they've done us a lot. They've done us very well. They've extended infrastructural development into nooks and crannies of the country that the regions are totally unable to do. So I think the state should remain the federating unit, and the geopolitical zone should just remain as a form of, supervisory body whereby the governors can come together and meet and review matters. But I think for the day-to-day governance of the country, the geopolitical, the state should remain the federating unit.
Okay, if state remains the federal, if the states are to remain the federating units, doesn't that argument put extra burden on the states by creating another superstructure that will lie in between the federal government and the state?
No, because the geopolitical zone is not a legal entity that is funded by the government. Anything it does will be funded by the state. It will be the 6 governors who will come together and say, okay, we want to do this, and let's put money together to do it, whether they want to or not. I mean, in my proposals, for instance, I actually suggest that 10% of all the revenue that comes from that the states generate goes towards the geopolitical zone. And and that could be used for basic things, like if you want to have an interstate, say you want to have a cocoa railway that allows all the states in the southwest to move their cocoa to a Apapa port, you could use that kind of money to fund that kind of thing. In the northwest, if you want a groundnuts railway scheme that allows all the states to hook up, build a railway scheme that allows them to hook up to Kano, so they can deliver all their groundnuts to one warehouse. It will allow them to do that.
Okay, so okay. Now, if I want to, let me start by the first one there, the South. How did you come about the Patani, basically Western Niger states? As many people will say, well, why don't we have another state XYZ? Why the new Western Western Niger, which is Patani?
A lot of people will probably be aware of the fact that there are many Ijos in Delta and Ondo states. Full-blooded Ijos who are just as Ijo as anybody from Bayelsa, they don't have their own state. They don't have their own representation. I've just felt, they should have their own state, which articulates their views as riverine people, as Ijos, and allows them to participate, in the governance of the South like any other Ijo.
Okay, so again, then I come to the Northeast. We have the Mambila state.
Yes.
And that's anything to do with the Mambila Mountain?
Yes, the Mambila Plateau.
Yes,
is arguably the most fertile part of Nigeria. All right, the best. It's just the most scenic part of the country you can think of. In in that area bordering Adamawa and Taraba states. What a lot of people don't know about that area is that it has the best wildlife in Nigeria, right? What I have in mind for Mambila State is it actually being Nigeria's wildlife sanctuary, kind of like South Africa's Kruger National Park. You can have all sorts of wildlife there: elephants, giraffes, lions, hyenas. Apparently, they all roam there in that little axis along that Cameroon border. Nigeria is obviously not earning a penny from international tourism today. All those areas, that area should be turned into one. I'm saying a scenario where at least half of the state is a wildlife sanctuary, strictly for the animals, and just brings in billions in terms of tourist revenue.
Okay. Now I'll come to a little one. I think we have this is the one that have come back with a couple of points. Where in the Southeast you have the Orashi state,
yes,
and Anioma state appears to be the one everybody agrees. There ought to be an Anioma state, the capital in Asaba. Now, but the Orashi, why did you pick Orashi instead of Adada?
Well, a majority of the peoples of Delta State, of River State, are actually Igbo or Igbo speaking. Like the Ikwere, the Eche, the Ubani. These are Igbo people, Igbo speaking people, right? They should be I think they should be allowed to be part of the Southeast with their kith and kin. Now, what I'm proposing is give them their own state, somewhere like Omuku, with Omuku as their capital. Let them become part of the Southeast and let them participate in the politics of Nigeria as full-blooded Igbos. So a name like Odili, a name like Amici, these are all Igbo names. These men are Igbo through and through. The Kwere dialect is basically an Igbo dialect. But why are these people recognized as Igbos?
Well, it's I think it's something to be argued about, because I don't think anyone denies them their Igbo-ness, but obviously there is reasons where they said they are not Igbos, and you can't force someone to be what that individual says he can, he's not. You've heard Chibika Amechi, who is the Ikwere, saying he's Igbo, and at the same time you have a sitting governor who is also Ikwere saying he's not Igbo. So see, those are two conflicting identities within the same. I mean, maybe someone could argue maybe that has to do with a lot of politics. That one thinks, if my opponent says he's this, then I would say I am not. Let the political contest continues. Anyway, but don't you think if we take Adada state, Adada would have also done the same job of Arashi Amoko. Adada would have probably been maybe Aba as the state capital. And I would have done because it's apparently in the same boundary. They share the same boundary with this part of rivers you're talking of now, like the Oyibos.
No, I think the Adada, if I'm right, the Adada state was to be carved out mainly of Enugu state. I think it was some of the Wawa people in Nsukka province saying they wanted their own states, and as a result, they were arguing they should carve up. I would like to see the maps of what people were proposing. But given that the Southeast geopolitical zone is the smallest of all the geopolitical zones in Nigeria, it's just 29,000 square kilometers. Just to put it into context, Niger State is 76,000 square kilometers. I really don't see the justification for making the Southeast any smaller.
It's not if you want to put that argument, then one can say if it's about if you take the Southeast, for instance, you can see that the Igbo-speaking people are beyond, as you have taken note of the Orashi state.
Yeah.
And some can argue that in Benue and Kogi, you still have Igbo-speaking people there. Therefore, if you kind of bring them in, you would expand that territory. I mean, for now, that's the whole entire Southeast is slightly bigger than the state of Oyo, and in equal size, the same as Kogi, which is about 29,000 kilometers square. So I'm just trying to, because when these posts that you've made came out within the week, and I shared it, and a lot of people have come back, especially within even the North Central and the Southwest. One saying, why don't they have I can't remember the state he called it, but again, the North Central are already saying, how is it that if you take, for instance, Abuja, shouldn't Abuja be have the same an independent status, sort of? Why must Abuja be part of a state in that context?
Well, Abuja, as we well know, is fast growing into another Lagos in terms of being cosmopolitan, attracting investments, serving as our link to the outside world. As things stand, it's still dependent on the federal government for everything. I think sooner or later, that's going to catch up with us. Neglect will always catch up because the federal government, by its very nature, cannot be responsive like a state government would be, with its own House of Assembly and governor. So unless we want to see Abuja degenerate into the way we've seen all our federal infrastructure degenerate, I think we need a state governor with a House of Assembly ASAP.
Now, without going into much, into deeper details now, as in picking out the individual states, the question that many would want to know, why do you then want to create more states if the argument is that the current states that we have are unsustainable?
Simple, for one simple fact. The one thing the British got spot on in Nigeria is that they carved us up into 40 provinces, right? These provinces have formed the basis of the 36 states today. But you see, the British got that so right. They effectively realized that we're made of 40 mini states, and that each, and their argument was that each one of them should be self-governing. And I look back at the First Republic era, and I look at how a man like Obafemi Awolowo, virtually everything he did was in Lagos and Ibadan. I look at Michael Okpara, everything he did was in Enugu, Port Harcourt, and Calabar. The Ahmadu Bello, everything he did was Kaduna, Kano, Jos. These premiers could not reach out into the nooks and crannies of the regions. So if we don't have states, there's just some parts of the country that will just be totally neglected because the governors in their capitals, miles and miles away, won't even notice they're there.
Well, if we look deeper into what you've written, I have a section here that says that over a 35-year period, that your proposition will gradually migrate back to 1957-58 revenue sharing formula, which is 50-20, 50-30-20, right?
Yes.
So now, and you say over a 35-year migration, a period of time, and I'm thinking that's too long a time. I mean, if something serious ought to happen, couldn't that happen in a space of 2 electoral cycles of 8 years?
Yes, it could. It could happen within 5 years, really, if we wanted to, if the political will was there. But unfortunately, the reality of Nigeria is that our states are totally dependent on the federal government for survival. Without the federal handouts, these governors can't even pay salaries. They can't do anything. And that is why a lot of these intellectually lazy governors are scared of resource control, is why they're scared of restructuring. And they incite people to violence, scare people, terrify them. So the whole idea of having a drawn-out program like this is to give them time to put structures in place and to allay any fears. Because, I would like to, some states have they have no technical training colleges to train staff to work. They have no industrial estates. They have no food processing plants. They have no power generation. All these things take time. So the whole idea, I know it's a bit, some may argue it's a bit too lengthy, but the whole idea is to give states the time to put some sort of structure in place, while we're having this gradual transition.
Well, okay, on the gradual transition, I think, one might have a different view on that. Again, as I've said now, it could be something shorter than what is being proposed, but again, is all propositions. Here, on point 7 here, you said, any state that fails to generate as much revenue as it spends for 2 consecutive years as from 2020, assuming we we were thinking or we were making something out of anything, will be subject to an immediate declaration of state of emergency. It shall be administered centrally by the federal government until its books are balanced. Question then is, doesn't this point negate the creation of state?
No, because the way you see, we've got to come up with some sort of naming and shaming governance structure in Nigeria. At the moment, you can manage a state, be the most incompetent governor on earth, and there's no sanction for it. Now, what I have in mind here, that was actually supposed to be 2030. It was in the process of changing my thing that somebody got it mixed up, when they were trying to distort what I wrote. But the whole idea is that by 2030, you have a structure in place whereby if your revenue does not at least match your outgoings, you as a state governor are publicly humiliated and shamed in the National Assembly, asked to come and defend yourself. If you can't do it satisfactorily, your state will suffer the ignominy of direct rule from Abuja. So the whole idea is that this will force governors to get their act together.
And that will be taken over from Abuja that probably has not taken care of itself.
Yes. To be honest, I don't expect Abuja to do much different. But it's the shame of it. The whole idea is to get local people to pressurize their government to say, we don't want this ignominy of being ruled from Abuja. Please don't put us in that humiliating position.
Okay, how do you, because in Nigeria, I mean, as you are aware, a lot of things can be cooked. Even state ledgers can be cooked. So if they like cooking, how are you sure that in order to evade this sanction that will make the Abuja to take over, how are you sure that result will not be cooked?
Every state account should be audited by an external auditor in the private sector. It happens everywhere you go on planet Earth. Even the likes of FIFA, Health Organization. Sometimes when they're not satisfied with the way money they've given we Africans is being spent, they call in external auditors like Cooper Whitehouse to come in and audit the books, and they won't accept explanations unless these explanations are backed up by independent external auditors. So that's something I want to see meet a statutory requirement in Nigerian law. Every state budget must be audited by an external auditor every year, and the details made public on a website where everybody can access it.
You also made a point here that every state is free to create more local government, provided they meet the necessary criteria, which includes holding a referendum and the fact that the local government area is self-sustaining. To be recognized as a local government area, basic facility that must exist within the domain include 20 primary schools, 5 secondary schools, a local government headquarters, and at least 1 vocational training college, and at least 1 public health center. Some would argue that this is very minimalistic for a local government.
Yeah, it's very minimalist. It's basically a starting point, because at the moment there are no guidelines determining what becomes a local government. You see, the current local government structure we have began during the last military, the first time around when General Olusegun Obasanjo was head of state, when it was decided that local governments would be paid from central coffers. So every Tom, Dick, and Harry government then went back to their village and turned it into a local government in the hope that they will get government funds. And that has been cooked, and there's no structure in place. And, it has nothing to do with local requirements. In Lagos State, for instance, we all know that the state government has been screaming for ages saying, look, we need more states, we need more local governments. But the federal government has not allowed them to create those local governments. All the federal government has to say is, okay, you can do it, but as long as you fund it yourself, that's down to you. So yeah, for me the key issue there is the state should fund their own local governments. As long as the local governments don't take a penny from the coffers, from the central coffers, if they can have 200 if they want, that's their problem.
Basically, that's coming back to where the former governor of Lagos State, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was with the federal government when he created those not local government, but I think it's called local council or something like that.
Yeah, local council development areas. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, but now, don't you think that if this authority is granted for the state to do this, that we might end up having what in some states where states can create autonomous community, and now you come back to Abia State, you see a keke, not literally, but you see a keke and it says, oh, this is the keke of His Royal Highness of XYZ autonomous community. Then suddenly everywhere, autonomous community springs off everywhere, now causing more confusion than solving any problem.
Yeah. But you see, the problem with all those, with the structure we have at the moment is, are all these states, are they prepared to generate revenue in all these local governments? Is it self-sustaining? If each local government had to have its own industrial parks where it manufactures its own good, where it, ensures that it attracts investors and generates wealth, I think a lot of those agitations will cease, because people will realize it's no longer free lunch. I mean, at least in the case of Lagos State, they were planning to Lagos State could fund its local development areas itself. Although it's ironic that you mentioned it, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, when's the last time we heard him talk about resource control? I mean, I don't think it's in 2015. Have you heard him mention that once?
You don't, it's an African to speak when you're eating. It's against the table manners. So anyway, That's on it. But I think the last point here, before we take questions from people that have joined us, the last point here is the one I think every single person would agree. All local and state governments will, as a matter of course, award supply contracts to companies that manufacture products within Nigeria. Only as a last resort, will companies that manufacture products abroad be granted government contract. So now, even without making this as a law, don't you think that those today that are in government could as well have done this without? For instance, if you come down to the Southeast, we can hear about marginalization and all this, whatever you can, everybody can come up with. But no one stops the Southeast from making, even if it's not a law, or making the move to ensure that every single state government procures their vehicle from a locally manufactured one in the name we called Innocent Motors. So if that's, if that is the case, does that need to be part of something that frames an entity, or where has common sense gone to that people can't probably do something as you just proposed?
You see, Mazi, to be honest, a lot of our problems in Nigeria are down to attitudinal change, require attitudinal change. Some of them, the existing laws can take care of our problems, but people's mental attitude has got to shift. I'll give you a classic example. Do you know that the 4 million doses of this new COVID-19 are being imported from India? That we're talking about, from India. A third world country that used to be like us, a former British colony. But as soon as they heard about the virus, their pharmacists got into the laboratory, started looking at all the tropical plants around them, which ones could be used to form a vaccine. And they were working with companies like Pfizer and AstraZeneca. And India, some of their anti-malaria drugs were used as a basis for coming up with this vaccine. Is anybody trying to tell me that the Nigerian pharmaceutical industry could have done the same thing? We could have. We could easily have been manufacturing those drugs in Nigeria.
How could they have without electricity?
When you say without electricity, what stops us putting solar panels on our roofs in Nigeria to generate electricity that will run an industrial estate? In Europe today, industrial estates do not rely on the national grid for their power. They generate their own electricity. That's standard procedure.
Now you've just mentioned this. I can see people's comments online. Obviously, we are on our various social media handles, and what they are saying is that this conversation as the way to repair this damaged entity is not going to work. That the solution is to divide the country. What would you say about that?
I mean, there's no logic to that argument. People who say that, you ask them, how many places are you going to divide Nigeria into? Where are your borders going to be? Who are going to be your citizens? Whenever they go to that, they can't. There's no way you can.
Let's take for instance, if people say, okay, we want an Oduduwa Republic, and is Oduduwa Republic, or let's say people say we want a Biafra, is the Biafra Republic does that not have a defined border?
I don't think so. Okay, let's take those two issues you raised. Oduduwa Republic, where does it stop? Kogi, and there are Yorubas in Kwara and Kogi State. Are they going to be part of this Oduduwa Republic or not? Biafra Republic, are we talking about the whole of the former Eastern region, or are we just speaking about Igbo areas? I mean, it would take 50 years of war to even draw borders. I just can't see it. I just don't see it. It just cause too many arguments. I don't see how we will resolve it.
But what of if those that argue about the Biafra say, well, it is the borders of the old Eastern region, and that is no longer tenable?
It's no longer tenable. I'll give you, first of all, the minorities within the old Eastern region would not want to live in an Igbo-dominated nation. They would never accept that. The Efik, the Ijaw, the BBO, the Ogoni, I don't see how the Anang, I don't see how they would accept that. Secondly, people forget that we've come a long way from the First Republic. There are more Igbos living outside the Southeast than within the Southeast. There's
That's
something like
correct.
15 million Igbos in the South, like 20 million outside the Southeast. What is going to happen to those Igbos living outside? Are they going to be denied citizenship, or what's going to happen? Are they going to suddenly become foreigners in Nigeria?
If you drive that argument, one may then want to ask, don't you have Nigerians living in England buying properties there? So what makes that, what informs that the argument that if the nation divides, then the other one doesn't have the right of property or life or right to live. We have Ghanaians in Nigeria, we have Togolese in Nigeria, and we have Nigerians in Togo, and we have Nigerians. So wouldn't they be free to move? I mean, does that mean you need to be enemies because you no longer won? We had the issue of Eritrea, right?
Well, people keep forgetting that in the past, it's always been a very, very vexatious issue. And I think it's utopian to think we're just going to wake up one day, sign an agreement, everybody shake hands. The only way you can carve Nigeria is by having a brutal and bloody civil war that will set each of the component parts against each other, right? And the way I see it, the moment you have that, you would immediately have ethnic cleansing, you will have pogroms, you will have the confiscation of people's properties in different parts of the country. I hope you recall that, after the Nigerian Civil War, there were cases of abandoned properties in Port Harcourt, which till today, there's some people who unjustly never got their property back in Port Harcourt because Governor DSP used it as an opportunity to seek a vengeance on the Igbos he was jealous of. These are the kind of things that are just going to repeat themselves across the country. I don't see how it can be resolved in a gentlemanly manner.
Okay, so we would start bringing people in, but in summary here, now, you've written this, you penned this. This has generated a lot of conversation. Hence, that I reached out to you is after reading this, and we said, okay, let's have this conversation and make it a wider conversation. Question then is, having penned this, what do you think is the next thing that Nigerians can do based on the proposition? Because again, it is only your thinking, just that we make that clarification. Yeah. Whatever we've shown on the screen, the conversation so far are your thoughts. That doesn't mean it has to be accepted by everybody, but at least it forms a starting point for that conversation to be driven. Question then is, what would now be your summary? Do you think it's something that the National Assembly should be approached, or that the people must come up with some form of agreement and demand a referendum for these things to be done?
Well, I think the first thing is take it to our representatives, both in the National Assembly and at state level. If we can get the debate started, if you could say, for instance, get your State House of Assembly to pass a resolution looking into these matters. If you can get your local senator or member of the Federal House of Representatives to float a bill on the floor of the National Assembly, it gets the debate going on. Get the governors, discuss it at the Nigerian Governors Forum. I mean, part of our problem as a country is that our democracy is still not mature. We don't put enough pressure on our political representatives, so they don't have to act on it. In the past, we've had 3 national conferences. Things like this have been suggested in the past. But, what I've been told is that there was near consensus, but 2 geopolitical zones, the Northeast and the Northwest, were terrified of these suggestions, thinking they would be strangulated economically if they were asked to stand on their own.
With all the landmass.
Exactly, yeah. But, if we take this argument to them and say, look, it's nonsense, somewhere like the Northwest, Zamfara, Kebbi, Sokoto could be the world's largest solar park. If it could generate all the electricity we need in Nigeria, which could bring in revenue that surpasses crude oil. You look at the animal husbandry debate. You look at states like Yobe, like Borno, with their huge land masses. They could easily have, cattle ranches that produce milk, that produce leather products, that produce meat, that could easily generate more revenue than crude oil is bringing in. So these are the kind of arguments we need to have, and to explain to people that, there's nothing to fear from this. You'll be better off, with resource control.
But again, you just talked about if these arguments will be taken to the people at the National Assembly, then I would sit back a little bit and ask, who are those at the National Assembly? Have you forgotten that the party in power, the APC, have a document that they came up with after looking at various conferences that was done in Nigeria in 2017 and said, this is our party APC restructuring document. Yet that document is gathering dust today. You talk about restructuring, even the president will look you in the eyes and say, well, anyone talking about restructuring is not being sincere. On the same promise that he ran the 2014-15 election. So I'm just thinking, if there is nothing forthcoming from those who are already in government today, getting anything to them, would that make any sense?
Well, but over recent months, we've actually seen that we can force the government's hand if we put enough pressure on them. I mean, you look at the way we got rid of SARS. It was people pressure from below. Widespread.
Hold on, has SARS actually gone?
Well, officially, the government has scrapped it. Or at least they announced that they scrapped it. You know, if we can actually, let's take that as the first step. Let me agree with you that, okay, we haven't, it's not yet Uhuru. We're not there. At least we're on the way. Imagine if we could make that first step with resource control. If we could get the government to say, okay, yes, we're scrapping the federal allocation formula, we're going back to resource control. Would that not be a gigantic step?
I mean, honestly, I don't know, because all the solutions are already, the solutions, nothing new. None of us can reinvent the wheel. By the way, in the 2014 National Confab report, or Confab deliberations, many people went in there to match states, people like Pastor Tunde Bakari. But incidentally, they came out of that meeting creating more states. So it means nothing is actually new. They've been hearing and they've been trying to get some of these things done, but it appears there is an unseen hand that is welding the progress down. Unseen hand.
I know, it's like, Nigeria. Someone once said Nigeria is in a permanent state of transition. We make all these good suggestions. We put them into documents and then we throw them into the archives and nobody touches them again. A classmate of mine once actually, he went to the National Institute of Policy in Akuru near Jos, and he said when he was filing his report at the end of his year, he went to the library and he was shocked to find out that there were policy documents of virtually everything we talk about. What he himself was writing about, somebody had done it previously, but the report was just a gathering dust. Nobody had touched it. And so this is one area where we need a proactive presidency. You need one arm probably of the presidency. Just maybe the office of the vice president, just make it responsible for implementation. Whereby, you have a body of officials who do nothing but implement government policy. Nobody's doing that at the moment.
That's a tragedy. Anyway, let me take the first question today. I'm gonna be bringing in Ola Martins. Ola, please, can you ask your question or you make your contribution quickly?
Good afternoon, everyone. This program is a very good program, at least for people who are in diaspora can be able to understand and know exactly what's going on within Nigeria and the government. The way I look at it is Nigeria is not really working at the moment. The presidency, everything, the insurgency, the killing, the insecurity, everything's not working. Look at what my honorable gentleman just mentioned regarding creation of this local government development area. When it comes to creation of this local government development area, you have to be within the law before you can be able to do that. for Lagos State to be able to come about this development area within the local government that is not in the constitution. I've never seen any other state that create any of this development area that will be added to the one that have been created before.
I think Imo State under Rochas Okorocha had something similar where he...
It is similar, but not to create a local area development and local government development area. It is similar, but what it is similar, but it's not the one that to create another development local area that we add to the one that have been developed.
Of course, he called it the fourth tier of government. That means it's beneath the local government. Whatever that means, I believe that's the same way we had the Minister of Happiness. Okay,
it's abuse of the government, and the government is there to tackle it, to let them know that this is not is not agreed. For the Lagos State to get away with it, and up to today, nobody said anything about it. That means that local government that have been created is there to stay. So is that if other states are now wake up and say, okay, they want to add it more to the one that have been there before, are they going to agree with it? Apart, because we've seen an example of the Lagos State that have been created. It's been many years that's been on now, and so the allocation that have been sent to them, is it going to be increased or is it going to be the same amount?
Okay, may I understand your question quickly, because I think so what's your question quickly?
Yeah, my question now is, because there is two laws that is within Nigeria. One is for one party, another one is for another party. If you are not in the caucus of this party that do things and get away with it, no matter what you do in Nigeria, it will not be succeeded. And that is exactly what we are doing now, what we are seeing at the moment. That is my question.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I would classify that not being as a question, but maybe you need to be clarified. What Ayo was saying, the reference he made wasn't that Lagos State created local government, but Lagos State created something that was under their purview, something that they will manage, something that will not, local governments in Nigeria get money from federal government. So this was not the case in the case of Lagos State. So it's a state thing, but obviously the then president Olusegun Obasanjo didn't like the idea. Hence he withheld the money that was meant for the state at that time. I don't know if Ayo, you want to say a thing on what he just said now, but that's my view on that issue.
No, I think if I could just clarify, I think what Councillor Martins is saying is that how do we fund these local governments in various states? And I hope I made that point, that as long as these states are self-financing, they are not getting any money from the federal government as its current structure. That should resolve the issue. You understand? Any state that wants to create an extra 10, 20, 30 local governments should be free to do so once they meet certain criteria. And chief among those criteria should be that it should be self-funding. The money comes from within the state. Simple.
It's as simple as that. Thank you very much. So, Oba Akinyode, please.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. Let me first commend Ayo Akinfe for this interesting write-up. I get this daily from Akin, and I really wonder how he comes up with this thought leadership. So I really commend him. And I'll also have to appreciate you, Mazi, for bringing up this forum. Obviously, his last post, maybe the second to the last one, actually caught your attention. And I would like us to have more of this from the likes of Akin and maybe other people who we consider thought leaders. So my question really, or my contribution is the point where Akin raised on the local government, which also rides on the back of what Councillor Martin just said, in terms of them being able to fund maybe arms or other entities that create. And Ayo came up to say, well, if they're not able to, then the federal government should take them over and name and shame them. And the question was, how does the federal government take over these, because they already have their arms full? So for me, I think the Atkins line of thought, I totally agree with it. They should be named and shamed and also be made to accounts in a transparent manner for the way they spend money and run all this, their operations. I mean, we have AMCOM that does it with the banks. AMCOM is a federal government arm, and AMCOM does a good job at making sure that banks run their operation properly. So all the federal government needs to do is create a specialized department for that purpose, get competent people to run it, just like they've done successfully with AMCOM over the decades. So, yeah, that's all I'm going to say in that regards. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. I think Emeka Igwe, if you can kindly unmute yourself and ask your question, Emeka.
So thank you very much. This is Dr. Emeka Igwe from Germany. Mazi, thank you very much for the wonderful program. So I will be joining a new program in a few minutes. So my question is this, Akin, thank you very much also for your proposal. So you will see increasing the number of states will create a more burden to us because of the cost of governance, which is a great problem at the current disposition of what we have now, having 36 states. So what is your proposal on how to check the cost of governance? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's quite straight to the point. So Ayo, please go ahead.
It's very simple, Emeka. Look at what we have in America. 50 states, there are 50, not one of them takes a cover from Washington, D.C. Every single state in America raises its own taxes, has its own industrial estates where investors are paying it a revenue. There is nothing, for instance, stopping a state government in Nigeria. So you know what? We're going to set ourselves a target of generating $10 billion a year. Of that $10 billion, we're going to spend $8 billion, and we're going to put $2 billion in an external fund, in a foreign investment fund, so that it generates income, which we're going to invest after 5 years. And let me let you into one secret here, which a lot of Nigerians don't know. In 1959, the federal government of Tafawa Balewa had a budget of £50 million. The Western Region government of Obafemi Awolowo had a budget of £55 million. Right? There is no law in Nigeria today that prevents a state government from having a bigger budget than the federal government. None. You see, I think the problem is the caliber of people who become governors in Nigeria. It's so unfortunate. If you actually had thinking men and women there, a lot of our states, they're sitting on gold mines, which they're just not tapping into. So for me, it goes back to this point I made earlier about attitude rather than the actual structure. There are a lot of things, Mazi Ezeoke made the point himself about, there's nothing stopping the state from doing this and this and this at the moment. A lot of the things, the solutions are within their fingertips. There is nothing stopping a governor of any state to come to Britain and say, okay, investors, where do you want to invest in my state, please? This is what we have. We have land. He could set himself an investment target of $2 million, and aim towards achieving that every year. So in a nutshell, Emeka, the answer is make the states self-sustaining. And I'm going to end it with this. The way to kickstart the whole program is to stop this federal nonsense from Abuja. Until that stops, there won't be any incentives for the states to stand on their own 2 feet. Now, it's just like, unemployment benefit. You go to Abuja every day, you are given a handout. There's no incentive to do anything. But if you stop that, I think it will force the state governors to sit up.
Okay, thank you very much. So we take we'll take the next. Kevin will go, please. Can you unmute and ask your question, Kevin?
Okay, thank you for having me, Mazi. So my question is, I will have to first of all start from when he said we need to create more states. I think that's the place where I have a little problem, because the one that is being created already is already problem. So how are we going to cope when we haven't even solved the problem of the one that is being created, and now we have to create more states? Is that not going to be too much to cope? That is number one question. Then secondly, why not us do at least regional? Let it be regional. Like talking about the structure we are talking about from the beginning. I don't know, because most of us don't know, when the program started. So why not us go through regional? Regional is going to be more better, because in a regional, everybody the highest high government is not, or governor or whatever, the prime minister or whatever is not doing well, the whole people we join hands together to hold him responsible. Unlike state, because state, come on, like we already have problem with the state we have now. Not talk about Christmas.
So, but hold on. Let me pick a little, on your point. So, is anything stopping you from holding your state governor accountable? Is anything going to make it possible for you to hold your regional governor better accountable than your state governor? Is that not accountability?
Yeah, thank you for the question. The thing that is hard for us to hold this I don't want to use big word here. Let me just use small word. The thing that will not stop us is because of the federal government, and because the states are too small. Let me take, for instance, my own region that is called, let's say, Southeast. Let me take Igbo, for example. If now they have to say, okay, let it be regional. Now all Igbos, all Easterners are regional. It will be more, it's going to be more hard on the government, because join the whole Easterner, the whole everybody together. Nobody can stop us. But talking about the state government we have now, it's more smaller. And when you start doing it, maybe somebody from other state will be like, come on, take it easy. Okay, look at what happened in Lagos State. When it started, they will be like, come on, the kind of confusion is everywhere. So it's hard to hold the state governor responsible.
I'm sorry here, but I'm struggling to agree with that. When you look at if you're not able to hold your local government to account, you're not able to hold your state to account, but you want to hold an entire region to account. I don't know. Maybe Akim has a solution to your answer.
Sorry, let me break it down a little bit. Where I'm saying is, if you want to hold this kind of state government we have now responsible, federal government, which is in Abuja, they will come for the rescue. It's very easy. If let alone the state government and the citizen to do it, is more easy. But the kind of government we have now, if the citizen rise up, the federal government will come from Abuja to assist the corrupt governor to eliminate it. Look at what happened in Lagos State. Come on, the citizens, all of them rise up.
Okay, that's a fair point. Ayo, over to you.
Kevin, are you aware of the fact that in 1961, Ladoke Akintola became the premier of the Western region? The first thing he did was abolish free education. The people rose up against him. Who came to his rescue? The federal government of Tafawa Balewa, did they? They declared the state of emergency. They jailed Obafemi Awolowo. They unleashed the army on the Western region, and they shot people mercilessly. You see, whatever structure it is, local government, state government, geopolitical government, regional government, those stealing money are not going to be happy when people rise up and demand change. You want good governance? It's not going to come easy. As Fela said, if we are to Jeff ahead, we must to fight for Ram. So I don't believe that the structure is the actual issue. I just feel those benefits. You got to remember, with the chaos we have in Nigeria now, there are people who are benefiting from it immensely. People are making millions from it. With this kind of chaos, they are not going to sit back and allow ordinary people like you and me change it. And just quickly, I'll touch on two things. States, I've made the point earlier, states have actually brought a lot of socioeconomic development to Nigeria. For instance, current-day Bayelsa State was not on the national grid until the state was created in '96. You go to Uyo and look at the socio-economic development we're seeing there. There was nothing in Uyo. It was a very agrarian part of the world up until when Akwa Ibom State was carved out in 1989. Likewise, I'll take you back to the old Western region, my region. Most of Awolowo's projects were in Ibadan and Lagos. Modern-day Osun, Ekiti, Ondo states had no social infrastructure until the states were carved out. So I will always insist that the states have done us we've benefited far more from the states than we did from the regions. It's just unfortunate that we haven't got the kind of governance we saw during the regional era. If you gave me a Michael Okpara, an Obafemi Awolowo, or an Amadou Bello as a state governor today, you'll be shocked at the difference you'll see.
Okay, so now I have people online here. Many of them are kind of disagreeing, and many are saying that regional governance, when you kind of piggyback on what is obtainable in the United Kingdom, where you have 4 regions, that is what they are demanding. Maybe it's going to give them more autonomy to deal and to develop their region at their own pace. So how does that, just opposing that with the state structure that you just proposed, which one do you think pays more to the people?
Well, I mean, in 1958, we had an agreement where it was everybody signed up to the view that the country would be run by the federated units. Now, I mean, the United Kingdom is they have a unitary structure. They don't have they're not a federation, so everything is run centrally from London. So what I'm actually proposing, actually offers more subsidiarity in terms of government to the local areas, to states and to local governments than what you get in than what you get in the United Kingdom. And they're a parliamentary democracy, very, very unitary. So I don't see the basis for comparison. The US is probably a better comparison with Nigeria than the UK.
Well, it's actually where we started off, but for reasons best known to us, we kind of moved into the the presidential system. Again, let me take another question from Anthony. Anthony, could you kindly unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hello, good evening. I understood what the previous contributor was saying. Now, in the current system Nigeria is running, we are running 2 problems. One is the process of producing the leader. The process starts from the root, but ends up at Abuja. That does not give accountability. Now, the leadership, again, starts from the root and ends in Abuja. That does not give accountability. The fact is, the gap between where the policy is made and policy is implemented is too wide. Now, take for IG of police, for instance. He makes a policy. That policy goes through the AIG, goes through the Commission of Police, now goes through the area command, or maybe goes through the DPO. As it goes from one point to the other, the essence of that policy is distorted. So by the time it gets down to where it is implemented, it is merely the wish of the implementer. So that is, to me, the problem. That is why we need a regional system that will reduce the gap between where the policy is made and policy is implemented. Again, I'm from Anambra State. So when Ngige started, his government, he was building roads, and then he was able to go and see what was happening, visit the roads. Now tell me, if our current government is actually sincere, how many areas will the current work commissioner, who is Amechi, visit at a point in time? Oh, sorry, I believe it's Fashola, visit in point in time. So we need to bridge the gap between policy making and policy implementation. Again, thank you.
Thank you very much, Anthony. So could you take that question, please, Ayo?
Yep. I mean, I fully agree with Anthony that we need to bridge this gap. My solution is simple. Push all these things to the states. I mentioned that independence, there were only 4 things on the executive list: ports, army, foreign affairs, and railway. Everything else was governed by the states. So if you have security, the economy, healthcare, education, housing, all run by the states, it's a moot point. We won't have that issue at all. Everything would go, the state commissioner would be the man responsible. And then secondly, on that point, you mentioned roads, and which I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't understand this nonsense called federal roads. I don't understand it. Is there any road that does not pass through one state in Nigeria? A road is in one state. So the federal government should only maybe be concerned with constructing roads. The day-to-day maintenance of roads should be down to the state government. Have you heard, I don't know how many of you have heard, we are now going to play, we've got a football match against the Republic of Benin, and our Super Eagles are going to go to Port Novo by boat because the Lagos-Badagry Expressway is in such an embarrassing state. Their lives are actually at risk. Now, if that road, the Lagos-Badagry Expressway, which used to be the flagship road in Nigeria, if it was given to the Lagos state government, I don't think it would be in a terrible state it's in. So, yeah, I agree with you for wholeheartedly, Anthony. Give all these structures to the states, let them maintain them. Just give the federal government 20%, let it concentrate on external security and foreign affairs. You let us get on with the rest of it. That's my approach to that.
Mazi, can I get a minute?
Okay, exception, go ahead.
All right. What I'm saying is that the current system is based on a constitution, and that constitution is what they are trying to protect. What my good friend is suggesting is not covered under the current constitution. That is why, if we really want to make a move, that constitution has to come down. And I don't believe that the people that are there now will be willing or able to bring down that constitution. They can't in the first place. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to bring back Ola, please, quickly.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yeah. The last speaker just mentioned about the role and responsibility of this, whether you are councillor or you are minister or wherever. Now, what is the role of responsibility of these councillors and minister? And I believe every single one of them are their own constituency that they are responsible to deliver a tangible service to the public that elected them into their office. For instance, I live in UK and I'm a councillor in UK, and I've had some experience regarding this councillor's roles and responsibility. There was one time I spoke to one of my friends in Ogun State, and he was asking me about the role of councillorship and all that, and I'm trying to explain to him about what we do and how we support our residents and all that. And he's telling me that one of his friends that is a councillor, he lives in Abuja, and his constituencies is in Ifo. Ifo is about several miles to where he lives. So if you don't live in your constituency, that means you don't even know what happened to your residents. You don't even what happened to your constituents. You don't even do anything to support them in regards of wherever the man needs from you. So if things like that can be happening in Nigeria, and nothing is happened to all this councillor or to all this minister or whatever they call themselves, it's not on. That is why people like all these political parties, they're just there for figurate. They're just there for you to fold them in their office, and as soon as they get in there, they forget all about you. How can you live out of your constituency? The constituency that you're supposed to live in, so that you can be able to know exactly what's going on within your residence and within your area. So if you are living, it's like you are councillor in Lagos State, and you are living in Kwara State. I don't know any sense in that. So if that can happen, that means Nigeria is not really working, and there's no check and balance. There's nothing that can check them. If we do there here, we have what we call what do we call it? We call it like a code that we have to follow. If we don't follow that, that means they have to call us, and you can be suspended and you can be sacked because of that. So if you don't do exactly what you're supposed to do, or you don't represent your resident exactly so how you're supposed to do it, then you are not doing what you've been elected for to do. So you can be removed from office. So I don't think that is on Nigeria. And for that to be happening in Nigeria for many, many years, even from the time memorial, it's been happening and nothing has been done. And if it's not changed, nothing will change.
That's fine. Thank you very much. That's a very fine place to leave it. Then I'll take the last question now. That's Kevin Ugo. Kevin, can you quickly, for the second time? Quickly,
okay, thank you.
Very snappy one.
Okay, thank you, my brother. I want to round up. You know, the last question I asked, and all of us, including me, we are all also very confused. I think the only solution we have in Nigeria is breakup. Because now we have talked about state. We are still arguing about state, if state is going to hold about how many hours now. We are still arguing about regional, if it's going to, who are this problem? Federal government. So why not us break this country and let everybody control himself, control his army, control his security? Please, like I'm begging everyone, because it seems like we are not going anywhere. We are discussing about state, regional, and it's not helping. Please, I'm begging with everybody. Please, let us find solution to break this country. Let everybody control. Then if the whole country can come together for a business, it's quite different. I am begging everybody because we are confused. Please.
Thank you very much. Ayo, you've heard him. He is begging everybody to break this country. So Ayo, I don't know what you will say and where you want to start the breakage.
Exactly. Whenever I hear that argument, I keep asking people, into how many places are you going to divide Nigeria? Is it 36? Is it 774? Because that's how many local governments we've got. Is it 3 places? Is it 4 units? There are 350 ethnic groups in Nigeria. They speak a total of 650 dialects. How many areas are you going to divide Nigeria into? And to be honest, if you just look at the structure of Africa as a whole, we account for 18% of the world's population. We account for 3% of its trade. There are too many nation states in Africa. We're economically too weak. And I have long advocated that we need to merge some of our nation states. You know, the best news I've heard this year was when the president of the Republic of Benin suggested that Nigeria and Republic of Benin should merge. I would love to see Nigeria, Benin Republic, Niger Republic, and Cameroon merge into one nation.
But that was denied immediately.
I know, yeah, they were denied, but it just shows the poverty of thinking. Shouldn't they at least have looked at it and thought, okay, let's examine this suggestion and we get back to you? They didn't, but so again.
But I mean, if you want to drive the argument forward, it would have probably made more sense if Benin is itching to move and merge with Lagos State, but not Nigeria, as it were. Lagos State.
But Benin Republic runs along the length of Nigeria, from Lagos State all the way up to, is it Kebbi State? It runs along the length of Nigeria. So
anyway, I think it appears the people who are more of the dividing the nation are still not satisfied, thinking that that has to be looked into more. But before we do more, let me ask Mazi Okoye to quickly unmute and ask your question, Okoye.
Thank you, Mazi, and thank you, Ayo. Like the last speaker said, Nigeria is actually a sick country. If you can personify Nigeria as a person, you probably see there is something very wrong with the country's psyche. And to solve most of the country's problem, you have to look into the country's psyche, which is not in the right place. Nigeria is mentally ill. And with best intention in the world, we think about all these structural changes that we need to put in place to solve a deeper problem, which to me is not going to change anything. I know, Mr. Ayo, you're doing your work with best intention to see progress. So do you, Mr. Mazi. But there is something fundamentally, sickening and flawed in the country's psyche, which you yourself, you will admit.
Well, sorry, I interject here. Obviously, I don't think any of us here disagrees that Nigerian system is, well, not system, that Nigerian psyche is false. Question is, I mean, the problems we know, what proposition do you think is the solution?
The solution would be to go fundamentally back and start rewiring the way we see things. People don't act the way they're supposed to act.
And how do you do that?
People don't think the way they're supposed to think. Nobody acts with best intention or with that foresight in terms of, okay, what should I do to benefit the greater good, to benefit everybody else? Everybody thinking just for themselves. This is a wrong way of running a place or living in a place. That's why everything is upside down in this country, the United Kingdom. Everything is done with the greater good in sight. I pay my national insurance, to contribute to the National Health Service, to pay the police, to, pay people that doesn't have work, to pay their house rent and all that. If we don't start seeing things, applying what we're saying to people, not just the structure, if you don't bring the people into whatever we are saying and doing, we're still missing the most important element of our discussion, because at the end of the day, it's the people that are supposed to run these institutions that we are trying to put in place. If these people are still sick in their mind, if their psyche is still very flawed as the way it is today, then you're sort of, I don't know. I mean, putting your water in a leaking basket.
Anyway, thank you very much. You've made your point, but again, I wasn't able to extract a solution from you. But be that as may, I would allow. I think someone joined in with an iPhone. Ideally, I don't allow that, but exception. Could you, when you join such meetings, can you kindly endeavor to put your name so that you are addressed appropriately? So whoever you are, can you kindly make your suggestion or ask your question, please?
Thank you very much, and good evening. Mr. Ayo, thanks for everything you've been writing. I've been very, very captured with it. But my name is Tina Agbo, and I live in Nigeria. Unfortunately, those of you who live abroad, you believe in, especially those who believe in Nigeria. I thank you for believing in Nigeria. But some of you who live abroad really don't understand how Nigeria works. Like the last speaker, he's talking about how he pays his insurance and things work. The reason why this conversation is going on at all is because things are not working here.
Exactly.
And yes, so there's no point going back to that. Like the host was saying, so now where do we go from here? So the answer is, like Mr. Ayo will always say, to me, we have two suggestions, just two options. One is either you take everything from the exclusive list and leave it minimally and give us the powers to make monies within our states or within our regions. The people who have powers in Nigeria are not finding that easy to do. The second is for us to go back to 1963, regional governance. It still boils back to us owning our own resources and deciding on what we do. Mr. Ayo was comparing it with America and some states being richer. They don't go back. Everybody does not go to the center to collect subvention. We don't want to collect. It's like handouts. It's like giving Africa AIDS and taking everything we have. So even the powers of the governors are limited. No matter what ideas you have as a governor, you just can't do anything with it. How do you see a situation where you own solid minerals in your state, but somebody appears with a license from Abuja and mines in your state for his private consumption without recourse to the government of the state? So how do you make money as a state? You keep taxing your citizens over and over and over, and that makes it sound like you're a bad government. So, Mr. Ayo, you're doing very well. Let's look at it. We have a problem. We have to keep talking. Intellectuals come together, but in my thinking, we just need two of these solutions, one or the other. If they're afraid of regional government restructuring, then please take this easiest one is reduce exclusive list and give it to the states. That's my contribution, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ayo, I think I will let you, take that question. But before I do, I think I have many questions coming to you, Ayo. I think I have Amaka here. Amaka, kindly ask your question. Please make it very snappy.
Hi, I don't really have much of a question. I just had a suggestion. Particularly in America, you could not, the citizens would never allow themselves to be subjected to such horrible conditions. You would see every state, as we saw in NSARS, you would see every state outside for the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever is necessary in order to have the change that is needed. And one thing that I know of my people is that we seem to look to others to save us. And as citizens of a nation, you cannot, when your government is not doing what is needed for the country to grow, the citizens have to take it upon themselves, not in violence, but specifically with civil disobedience. That means that everything comes to a stop until the demands are what's the word?
Demands are met, maybe.
Yes, the demands are met. And simply put, for me, that's all that Nigeria needs. The problem is that people are scared of violence, and that's just inevitable, but not that you as a as a protester, a peaceful protester, should fear that. At the end of the day, they say that they can't kill everyone. When you have this mass flow of people in the streets and the government actually can't work, that is when you actually see the changes that you need. As the speakers mentioned earlier, he said with NSARS, these demands were met, even though, yes, we know that SARS is still around. But at the end of the day, this civil disobedience caused at least a change that I think that, people were looking for at the time, which was the ending of SARS. That's all. Thank you very much. And thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you very much, Amaka. So, Ayo, could you take the two questions and obviously?
All right. I'll start off with Tina's comments. The exclusive list, I do agree with her wholeheartedly. we need to actually work on the exclusive list. I don't think there should be more than 10 items in there in total. Obviously, we've moved on from the First Republic, as we now have things like aviation. We have the Super Eagles. We have a few things that I think actually would need to go on it, but I don't think the list should be more than maybe a dozen at most. Everything else should go to the states and local governments. That's another thing we forget in Nigeria. Do you know that Nigerian law today invests the governance of primary schools to local governments? Our local governments are doing nothing about that. That's something we should look at. Also, refuse disposal is a job for local government. We need to press them hard on matters like that. So it's not just it's not just the federal government. How many state governors allow their local governments to run primary schools or to collect refuse as they deem fit? So you see this mentality. I spoke earlier about attitudinal change. This thing has this at the top mentality. It governs us at every level. So even state governors do not allow their local government chairman to function independently. Back to the point Amaka raised, yes, I agree with you. If you want change, it's not going to come easily. You have to be prepared to fight for it. And that seems to be something we're not yet prepared to do as a people. You just look all over the world. The greatest progress has been made after periods of great convulsions, be it independence movements, be it women's rights, be it the civil rights movement in the US. Anywhere you go, people have been prepared to stand up and say, enough is enough. We're not going to take anymore. As a people, we haven't yet got to that stage. Maybe we haven't suffered enough. We haven't been pushed hard enough. But if we get to a point whereby we say, look, our lives have been made roughshod for too long, we're not going to take it anymore. I think we'll force them to act, because the whole world knows that, you cannot run an economy on one commodity. We're selling crude oil. It accounts for 90% of government revenue, and they're sharing it out amongst the states. That's just a recipe for perpetual poverty. Because what happens if the price of crude oil collapses to $10 a barrel tomorrow? Nigeria is in deep, deep trouble. So the status quo is not sustainable. But as a people, we've got to stand up and say, you know what? We are not taking it anymore as from tomorrow. Simple.
If I take your last statement, is it then fair to say that Nigerians are not standing up? We all are alive. We all saw what happened and how Nigerian youth stood up in EndSARS. And we all saw how they were dispersed. We all saw how they were killed, even when governments were denying. Very strange. A couple of days after the EndSARS, protests were dispersed, and the Lagos State Coroner General, whatever, came out and published that there are unidentified dead bodies in various morgues in Lagos, that people should come and claim those dead bodies. How ironic. Now, these young ones came out demanding for a better future, what's basic instinct in life, not to be killed, not to be, their lives knocked out of them. Yet, is it fair to say that they are not doing enough? I mean, they've obviously lost some. Aren't they doing enough to demand to be governed better? We saw people in Abuja when they came out to protest. Some people call them the Shiite, but who cares under which umbrella they came out is irrelevant. But we saw the National Brigade from the presidency, meant to be governed, to be protecting the presidency, came out with their uniform, with their armories, and shot live ammunition in camera glare. So who, with his right senses, would ever come out to know you're going to be shot and nothing happens? Obviously, you are in the United Kingdom. I believe Amaka is in the US. In these two cities that you are in, nobody would shoot at you and nothing would happen in that way that it happens here. So at the end of the day, I think maybe it's a little bit unfair for our younger ones to say that they are not, or rather that the people are not putting up enough agitation to say that these things change.
But I suppose NSAS was a good start. It really gave me a lot of encouragement, and I was really enthused by it. But it didn't take place until after so many years, and we have to sustain it. We can't just have that one protest and let it die down. Well, because the problems are there, we need to sustain this over a lengthy period of time. Are we doing enough to sustain that? All these other issues. I mean, look at the insecurity we're having today, whereby school children are being abducted on a daily basis. And we've had the governor of Zamfara State come out to say, look, people in government are colluding with these kidnappers. And are there enough protests against this? I mean, on a daily basis, you keep getting more and more funny things happening. So I think we need to keep up the agitation. The End SARS protest shows the potential of our people. But I would like to see a lot more. I think we're going to have to need a lot more of that, more consistently, if we're going to get the change we desire in Nigeria.
And again, in conclusion here, I think Tina made and I think you also alluded to that, Ayo, on the exclusive list. I don't know, sometimes when we talk about the exclusive list, I think somehow we are abdicating our responsibilities. I mean, when I say that I say the states. Arguments are, there are bridges you can't build because it's federal government. You can't build this road because it's federal government. You can't build railway because it's federal government. And I ask myself, even the ones states are doing, how far? Lagos State has been building a light rail for God knows how long. How far has it gone with it? What stops the government within certain regions to also even build light rail? I mean, yes, it's in the exclusive list, but there are workarounds. What are you doing about it? Let's take, for instance, practical example in the Southeast. What stops the whole 5 states in the Southeast to build light rail to cover the whole of Southeast? You start from Onitsha, you get to the point of, maybe get to Awka, at the boundary between Awka and Anambra and Enugu. You build an interchange. Federal government is not going to come and demolish an interchange that is in the boundary. Your yellow line comes into that interchange, stops, picks up from Enugu, which is blue line or green line, I don't care what the name is, and goes straight and goes. But sometimes I think, it's about the psyche that everyone is actually looking at Abuja saying, Abuja is not doing this is not happening. And when you think about it, what is the difference between what Abuja receives and what the state do? It's only 2%, for Christ's sake. The state and the local government gets about 48%. Abuja gets about 52%. That's only 2% differential. So when you think about that, you say, I believe sometimes one can get angry to say, I think we are wasting too much time hoping that a Messiah is going to come from either Abuja to fix the problems that we can actually hold our leaders to account to fix. I don't know. Sorry, that's my, that's my special moment. Sometimes the frustration, kind of hits.
I agree with you, Mazi. And you made the point. I look at the Southeast. This is the area where we have the most industrious people in Nigeria, the most ambitious, most enterprising people ever. And we still argue with the federal government over one Niger River crossing. And I'm saying to myself, come on, man. In the Igbo I know should have built 5 River Niger crossings. They should have put their tolls on there. There should be a railway bridge there. There should be a dedicated trailer and truck bridge there. They should be collecting tolls and be using this money, to develop their region. There should be a mobile aquarium. In fact, there should even be an underwater pass. Where is that entrepreneurial spirit gone? There is no federal government law that stops the Delta and the Anambra state government
to build a bridge,
from building any of these structures. None.
Even if there is, no, let's say for argument's sake that you cannot, federal government controls the waterway. Even if there is, let's go to court. Let's for argument's sake, this bridge, half of it is Delta, half of it is Anambra. Then come into that and paint it yellow. I don't bloody care. Then you paint the other one green. So, but there is a workaround. I think it's only Lagos State that actually took federal government to court on some waterway rights or something like that. So, one should actually see more people getting angry, taking these, actions. But it appears, for some reason, that those, in governance, I don't know, for some weird reason, it appears they've tucked their tails in between their legs for whatever reason, I don't know. Anyway, Olu Bedu, please unmute yourself and make your quick intervention, Olu.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm just passing by and I saw you guys discussing important thing about our country we call Nigeria. And we heard my brother Ayo putting his own point down. Before I said anything, I gotta say the person that put this program together, well done, you're doing a good job. Last week I passed by too, but I couldn't be able to wait. But today I saw it again and I heard what Ayo is saying. And I just gonna say my own point, which is going to be a little bit different, but it's gonna still be the same thing we are talking about. When you want Nigerians, when you want our leaders to build or to do something good in that country, first thing you have to see that the people that are leading us, it's just like you put somebody that doesn't know anything to lead the whole country. People that have no ideas, people that want to go there and take the money and enrich themselves and their families. You just said something like, why wouldn't Lagos State or other states build their own railway or have their own that? No. I remember the last time somebody mentioned something beautiful like this was Jack Odelatif. Then Buhari was the head of state then. He stopped him of doing that. But when he came back the second time, they will be able to build some railway and want to put some railway from north to outside Nigeria, which people in Nigerians are suffering. They don't have any road, no road. The roads that they're having, people are killing them on the road. Federal government have no choice. They have nothing to say about it. But end of the day, you will look at people that are living abroad, you will ask the question, who are the people leading that country? What kind of people are they? Do they have a clue at all? Or they just want to be there making people suffering? The money is there, they will share the money. And every one of us will be looking at them. Look at what Mr. Ayo said. When they did the NSAS, they went there, they killed the poor people. They killed the poor young guys. And nobody said anything. When the guys came out the second time, they still arrest them and go and put them somewhere. And they make them pay 100,000 each to release them. Why did they make them to release them? A policeman confirmed to one of the superstars that they took that, if not because of you that sent this thing out, they could have killed you guys. What kind of country is that?
Anyway, thank you. Thank you very much. Quickly, we need to bring back Amaka. Amaka, make it very snappy, please.
Okay, just wanted to say, so a country, after doing research, a country is probably the biggest business that anyone could ever have. You have your employees, which are the citizens of that country. And so we can look at Nigeria as a business, number one. And we know that there have been such large amounts of money that are stolen. For example, there was a time that I was reading about the fighter jets that were to be bought by the Air Force and they never came, but the money was dispensed. You know, we have people that steal the entire budget of an education budget for a whole state. And, you know, this is money that should be allocated to at least 1 million people, 3 million people, and one person takes that entire amount of money. So I think that if we can, be honest with ourselves, because also civil disobedience is not only protesting. A governor choosing to build a railroad inside of his state, even though it may go against what the central government says, that's a form of civil disobedience. So I just wanted to add those 2 points. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think I would take the last person, Edwin Ogolo. Then afterwards, Ayo would, basically make his concluding remark, then we'll call it a day. Thank you very much. Bugolo, please, quick.
Thank you, Mazi. Actually, listening to everyone here, we all agree that we have problems in Nigeria. And I have listened to all the suggestions and questions that everyone has raised. And one thing I want to remind everyone here is that what is happening to Nigeria is not unique. Every part of the world has gone through it one way or the other. It's just that we that happen to live in foreign countries right now, we are living at a glorious time when those countries have gone past the level and stabilized to the point that they were able to cater for their people. You see, the whole essence of a country is individuals giving up their power for the government to take care of them. That is not happening in Nigeria. And that is not going to come just by us just protesting. We have to go beyond that protest. Yet it's unfortunate that the last one protest that we saw, people were killed. But guess what? That is not the first time. We have been having this because I grew up in Nigeria myself. We have been having this. It's just that this time we have employed technology, which means the country has reached that level of technology deployment, and that's what made it so popular. So for us to move to past this level, we have to learn from what we've gone through over the years till now, and then move it to the next level. Now, I must say that I have no problem with the state government, the way we have it, and also regional government. But if I have to suggest, I would say, when we have the state government, we can also have a regional government, and the way they are dividing it now into like six region, right? And then the government at the state level will keep certain percentage and contribute certain percentage to the region and a different percentage to the national level. Now, the problem is going to be on the implementation, because Nigeria does not lack laws. What Nigeria lacks is implementation. That implementation now is infested with that small-mindedness of ethnicity, religion, and every other thing that beclouds it from working. Now, to break that out, we have to go beyond, like the protest now. We know that if you go out there and start protesting, the government is going to crack down on you. Then the next level is everybody arm themselves. So when you fight back, I think we're going to get to the point that the government will become ungovernable. It is at that point that change will come, because the government now is going to question their strategy, just like what happened to the Ijaw group. Ijaw group, when I was in school, we were protesting, the police were killing, army came in and all that stuff, but it got to the point when those guys now start having gone, and they realized that the problem is not the Nigerian government. The problem is the vested interest, which is the oil companies and every other people that you don't even know. So what happened? They start carrying gun. Now, how did the gun come about? They were armed by the politicians who used them to protect their interests. And now the ball now has turned around. And if you extrapolate, you may even see that probably may also have the same thing, may also be similar to what is going on in the country. So my own, the bottom line of my suggestion is that each and every one of us have to understand that the countries that we run to, we are living right now, have gone through the process Nigeria is going through right now. And it is the people that sacrifice to get the country to where it is. And we should do the same thing in Nigeria. Now, don't say, well, you're in the foreign country, who's going to fight for you? Well, I'll come back there. I'll be back there, and I'm going to make my own sacrifice.
That's the question I was about asking you. If you're saying that people should do what they've done, and I can see you are not also here in Nigeria, so I don't know how that will be done.
I come there.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
I have interest.
Yes.
I have interest, and I come there all the time. I used to come 3 times, 4 times a month, a year, So, I'm not really totally detached from the country. And,
okay.
So
thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think for everyone, it has been a wonderful and an enriching conversation that we started earlier, about over an hour ago. And the conversation centered on if the nation Nigeria would go back to the Lancaster Agreement of 1958, which metamorphosed, obviously, to 1963 Constitution when we now became a republic. Now, we have Ayo here, Ayo Akinfe, who is a journalist and author, and who here made a proposition and said that Nigeria should, if in his own wisdom, be made up of 42 states, with 7 states per each constituent geopolitical zone, where he basically said, if for South, for instance, he started by saying we should have a Bayelsa state, which is Yanagua, already in existence, and a new state that will be called Ijo State will have its capital in Patani, then River State, Port Harcourt, Akwa Ibom, Edo, Delta State. And interesting enough, the only region that has 5 states as it is today, that is the Southeast. And he made a proposition that the Southeast should have Anyama State, and with its capital in Asaba, Orashi State with its capital in Omako. So, and same applies to North Central, that would have an Abuja State and Guarara State in Kafanchan. Now, one thing here is nothing is cast in stone. He's only putting his thoughts to paper, meaning he is a thinking man. He is thinking there is a problem here. How do we solve this problem? This is his own proposition. In the course of the discussion, many have already said, well, why bother about all these reconstruction, reconfiguration, reform, or even restructure? Why don't we just go to the jugular? Why don't we just break the whole damn thing? Let everyone go home. In the course of this discussion also, it became apparently clear as well that some people are now arguing, oh, well, if we go down to breaking the whole thing, how and where do you start the boundary adjustment? Is it going to end up amicably? Is that going to lead into another conflict? No, there's been a whole lot of things, but the end point is nobody, even those who want the nation broken down, those who want the nation restructured, those who want the 1966, 1963 or 1958, one thing is very clear. The nation as it is today is not working. Ayo, on that note, I will say, could you please put your parting words and your conclusion in the discussion this evening? Thank you once more for being part of us here, Ayo. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mazi. Thank you. And I'd like to thank everybody who's logged in and who's contributed. I found their contributions, their questions very, very helpful. I'll just be brief because Ogolo raised a few issues, and that's to do with the nature of the governance. And I'll just focus on that as one area we haven't touched on. As it occurred to us that if you look at the Ogun State governor today, he's probably got a bigger budget than Obafemi Awolowo got when he was the premier of the Western region. Governor Willie Obiano probably has a bigger budget than Michael Okpara had. Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, who is calling for money to be given to Fulanis to buy AK-47, he's probably got a larger budget than Ahmadu Bello ever had. So it's something that makes my heart bleed when I look at the way gradually, have you not noticed since the 1966 coup, gradually the caliber of leaders have just gotten progressively worse and worse in certain parts of the country. And whatever structure you give people, at the end of the day, you still need human beings to administer it. And this is where, as a people, we need a reorientation. The Nigeria in which I grew up was one where people did things. Civil servants operated professionally. They spent money. They accounted for that money, and they published their accounts. you had to raise invoices before public money was spent. There was some degree of structure. Now it's anything goes. Anything goes. And this is not really a legal thing. It's an attitudinal thing. And so, as a people, I'd like to see some sort of civics education brought in to reorientate us as a people. Because let's be honest about it, the leaders we produce are a reflection of the Nigerian populace. There are now 109 senators in the National Assembly. But if you went to Oshodi Market and picked 109 people at random, their thinking would probably mirror that of the senators. I don't think there'd be any difference in their attitude. So as a people, we've got to alter the way we think, because when I look at some of the people who get elected, I keep asking myself, how do people vote for this man? Look at him. Just look at him. He's made it crystal clear he's only going there to steal money, but they'll still vote for him. We've had people with criminal cases dangling above their head, people who've actually been convicted of criminal cases, and they still win elections. So, and that says a lot about us as a people. So, it's not just changing the structure. We also have to change us, if we want to move this country forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very fine place to leave it. On that note, I will say thank you very much for joining us this evening. My name is Mazi Ezoke. And once more, this is Njenje Media